Hello everyone, very warm welcome to my YouTube channel. And as you can see, I have been, informing my some of the candidates and my friends who are looking for a job that how do you actually crack interviews, right? So if you see the other videos in my YouTube channel, I have been, putting some shots or putting some videos about AI interviews, whatever is trending on YouTube and the interview scene. So today I am coming up with top 10 actual interview questions for CS or IT or software developer freshers and also entry level job seekers in India. So the focus area will be questions for the core technical foundations for the IT services and product based campus drives, or now since it's July, August, like September, the campus season will start, right? And also most of you might also have been attending or looking to attend off-campus interviews in like job fairs or in job melas and employment fairs and all that. And you all might be looking for some sort of ideas on what are the different questions which they ask, right? So this is for exactly for you guys. And let us see what are the first question. Okay, so the first question is going to be, what are the core object oriented programming concepts, right? So yeah, many of you might think, hey, like who is actually or who exactly will be wanting to ask questions on OOPS and object-oriented programming in this era of AI, right? So see, basically you all have to understand that SDLC or the software development lifecycle, OOPS, all these are actually the fundamentals, right? So the questions are going to be on fundamentals, whatever you have learned in the 4 years of engineering or in your degree, right? So the first question is, what are the core OOP concepts? So the answer is pretty simple. The abstraction, encapsulation, inheritance, and polymorphism. Okay. So this is how we can like remember it's AEIP. Okay. So AEIP, abstraction, encapsulation, inheritance, and polymorphism. So basically, what is abstraction? Abstraction is something like you might have seen a switchboard, right? When you enter a room, you want to switch on the fan, you have to switch on the AC, you have to connect your charger and all that. So what you will be seeing is that only the front end or the switches and the regulator and the sensors will be displayed to you, but you will not be seeing the wires which are behind that. What are the complex electric circuits and all that wiring behind the building and all that, you know so that is actually abstracted from you, and that is exactly what is abstraction. Similarly, you have encapsulation, which is wrapping data, variables, and code together. Inheritance, that is whatever properties are there in the parent will be inherited by the child. And polymorphism, which is the ability of a message, function, or object to take on multiple forms. So let's go and see the remaining 9 questions. Okay, so what are the basic differences between method overloading and method overriding? Okay, so as you can see the answer on the screen, the method overloading occurs within the same class when two or more methods share the same name but have different parameters. Okay, but method overriding occurs when a child class provides a specific implementation of a method that is already defined in its parent class. Okay, so this causes trouble when you have the same method but different parameters. That is the method overloading. But when you have the different class and the same method signature and the return type that is resolved at runtime is called method overriding. Okay, so let us go to the next question. Okay, so what is the difference between a stack and a queue? I'll just give you a pretty simple example. You are standing in a queue at a function, at a wedding or a reception, and you have the catering, right? The catering will put the stalls, and the different plates will be kept one on top of each other. So as soon as you come near the plate, you will not be taking the plate which is at the bottom, right? So you will be taking a plate which is at the top. The person behind you will then take this plate which is at the top for him. So that is, if your plate is n, then n minus 1, n minus 2. So stack model is something which the plates follow, and the queue model is something which the people lining up for the food they follow. Okay, so stack is something like one on top of each other, but whatever plate has been put at the last is the one which is taken out first. But in a queue, the first in, first out, right? The person who was first in the queue will get the first chance to come out, or his turn will come first, right? So that is the queue model. All right. Okay. Let's see the fourth question. What are the primary differences between SQL and no SQL databases? So this is a very important, a very very important question. Okay, which you have to be thorough with. So SQL is something like a relational DB, whereas no SQL, in the sense it's not a relational DB. So SQL is something which is synonymous with relational DB, wherein you have relationship between the tables, the columns, the row, and all that. Okay, but a NoSQL is something like, it's, you can basically call it as unstructured or a semi-structured database. Like in SQL, you have a clear established relationship. Like you have tables. Tables will have a column. This column will have rows. Sorry, this column will have some rows, and these rows will have data, and these data may have some sort of relationship with primary key or foreign key relationship with columns of another table. Okay, so when you have something structured like this, then it comes under a relational DB or a relationship DB. But a NoSQL, MongoDB, Cassandra, Redis, if you have worked on it, then those are called as a NoSQL DB. All right. Okay. Okay. Right. So let us see the next question. What are primary keys, foreign key, and unique key in DBMS? So primary key is something which uniquely identifies each record in a database table. Okay, so let us consider this as the student table. You have someone with the roll number 001, which is Ashish Kumar. You have someone with roll number 002, which is Devendra Das. You have someone with roll number 003, which is Mohammed Hamza, right? Now, what happens in this case? I can consider a roll number as the primary key, which is it uniquely identifies each record. The sense 003 roll number uniquely identifies Mohammed Hamza, which means no two persons or no two entities can have this, which is a primary key. So if you have a name, then this is the primary key. So tomorrow, if you have a new joinee, say called as Rakshita, okay? I'll just give an example like Rakshita Salyan. Now this person cannot be assigned 003, right? Cannot be assigned 003, and she cannot be uniquely identified by this. So you will have something here called as 004 and so on. So this column uniquely identifies this column, and that is called as a primary key. Okay. Now what is a foreign key? A field in one table that references the primary key of another table. So in this table called as students, roll number becomes the primary key. Okay. In a table called as roll numbers, where you are just defining the roll numbers but not the relationship, this becomes, this column here uniquely maps to this column, and that becomes the foreign key. Okay, so consider that this is a country and this is a country, and this identifies the relationship in some foreign country, so this maps to this. Okay, now a unique key ensures that all values in a column are distinct. Okay, for example, roll number. Now here I can read this as a unique key, or I can also, in a student table, right? A roll number itself is again going to be the unique key, because no two persons or no two students can have the same roll number. Okay, so a primary key and unique key are something similar in the way that primary can uniquely identify each record in a table, and a unique key ensures that all values in the column are different. All right. Okay. What is the difference between a process and a thread? Now, this is a very important question. For example, if you open something like a task manager, right? You will see that here there are processes. Okay, and here you can see a different threads of the same process. You can see their PID, you can, which is, this comes in its own, different thread like structure, right? So let us go and explore, or check out rather, what is the basic difference between a process and a thread. So a process is a executing instance of a computer program, and processes run in separated isolated memory spaces and require IPCs to exchange data. Okay, now a thread is something like a smallest execution unit within a process. Threads belong to the same process, share the same process's allocated memory space and resources. So you can see that a process is something at a top level or at a parent level, and the breakdown of this top level is the thread, right? Okay, let us go to the next question. What happens when you type a URL into a web browser? Okay, so let us take an example here. I am just going to here and I'm just going to type something like www.facebook.com. Okay, or I'll just go and type something like www.microsoft.com. Okay, see, you can see that within 1 or 2 seconds you can see the Microsoft homepage has come here. So what exactly happens over there? The first part is DNS lookup. That is the browser. You are typing the human readable name, right? As I did with www.microsoft.com. So that gets converted into a machine readable IP address, which the process is called as DNS lookup. So you can go and see some of the other videos which I made, right, where I have explained DNS over there in a short video. The next thing which happens is called the TCP handshake, wherein the browser initiates a TCP IP connection with the server via a three-way handshake. Okay, it's sync, then sync acknowledgement, and the acknowledgement of the handshake, right? HTTP or HTTPS request. So you are specifying HTTP or HTTPS along with the domain name, and that request is sent by the browser to the target IP address, which is determined in this step, in the first step. Okay, all right. Server processing, the web server. So as you know, all the content which we saw here in that page, right, which we saw here in this page, okay, comes from a web server. You have somewhere stored like what happens or which page needs to be shown to you when you click on shop Microsoft 365 and all these images. It just comes from a web server. Okay, it can be an IIS, an Apache server, or an Nginx server, and all that. And then the page needs to be displayed to you in the proper format, right? Like where exactly the image is positioned, where should the button, what should be its color, so that the HTML and CSS files are parsed and shown to you, which is called as rendering. Okay, fine. Let's go to the next question. Okay, what is the difference between HTTP and HTTPS? Okay, so HTTP transmits data between the client and the server without any encryption. So it's in plain text, which is less secure, and it operates over the port number 80. Okay, so this operates over port number 80, whereas HTTPS operates over port 443. And the another main difference is that it uses a TLS and SSL encryption, which is a secure socket layer and transport layer security to secure the communication channel. That's why some of the banking sites and all that, when you are making a transaction, right, it happens over HTTPS, especially with passwords, credit card numbers, to prevent it from MITM or man in the middle attacks. Wherein if you are transmitting data over HTTPS, the attackers or a third party cannot break into your the communication which happens, and cannot steal that data since it's secure. But these days I think 99 or 98 to 99% of the websites are on HTTPS. All right, okay, let's move on. Okay, so the next question is about Git. So you might have heard of something like Azure DevOps, Team Foundation Server, TFS, or Git and all that. So what is this? A Git is nothing but a version control system wherein you can share the code repositories between different persons in your team, and people can collaborate and everyone can work at the same time. Okay, so Git is a distributed, means not a centrally controlled. Okay, it's not a centrally controlled, it's rather a distributed version control system that tracks changes in source code during software development and allows multiple developers to collaborate without overwriting each other's work. So this is the most important part. Okay, and you can also be thorough with some of the git commands. Okay, fine. Let us come to the last question in this series. What is recursion and what is a base case? Okay, so recursion is a programming technique where a function calls itself directly or indirectly to solve a smaller subproblem of a bigger task, and every recursive function must have a base case, because a recursion is something like repeated version of itself over and over again, right? Now without a valid base case you can run into something called a stack overflow error. And finally, I would also like to give you some tips. Okay, master one language, like pick Java, C++, Python, C, PHP, like whatever it is, and make sure you practice some examples of the code, because most often in the interviews they'll just give you a piece of paper without any mobile phone, without any tab, without any PC, without internet connection, and they would want to check whether you are able to write your own code. Okay, and especially if you are in your final years, you are in the midst of completing your final year project, or you are coming to an or you have already graduated but you're looking for a job, make sure you are thorough with your final year project. Okay, make sure you're thorough with that, and don't give any excuses like, I forgot my project, it was a year ago, it was 6 months ago, I was just a member of the team who was bringing the materials. No, so such excuses, they generally, will present a bad picture of yourself. Okay, so all the best, and make sure you go through all the questions, and also make sure to like and subscribe the video. All the best. That's it. Bye bye.